South Korea's president calling for stronger independent defense capabilities in the wake of Washington's scale down of drills with Seoul. The U.S. president's trimming down of joint drills with South Korea firing up concerns over continued strength in a decades-old alliance. Defense officials reportedly meeting in Seoul to cut back on the ongoing Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise. Donald Trump yesterday linking the move in part to Seoul's refusal to support Washington's war effort in the Middle East, pressuring again its ally to shoulder more of the cost of its own defense. South Korea's president conceding the need to take greater charge of national security, but also stressing how a strong national defense and a strong alliance with Washington complement each other.
이러한 국방력을 좀 더 굳건하게 만들려면 작전 능력의 전방위적인 고도와 또 이를 함께 이뤄낼 인재 육성 체계를 갖추는 것이 필수입니다. 이를 위해서 전시작전권의 임기 내 완수를 당초 정부 계획에 따라서 차질 없이 추진해 나가야겠습니다.
CNA senior correspondent Lim Yun Suk has more on Seoul's reaction to Mr. Trump's outreach to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
The joint military drills are one of the most visible demonstrations of this U.S. commitment to South Korea's defense. And President Trump has linked this to his decision to talk about his relationship with Kim Jong-un. And here in South Korea, there are already signs of how that decision is being worked through because the U.S. Forces Korea commander, General Xavier Bronson, visited South Korea's defense ministry, and he was reportedly there to meet with the defense minister Ang Kyu-baek. South Korea is seeing this as an opportunity and is welcoming Mr. Trump's outreach to Kim Jong-un. Now, we know that President Lee Jae-myung has previously urged Trump to be the peacemaker while saying that South Korea was going to be the pacemaker to help advance this dialogue between Pyongyang and Washington.
한미 양국은 북한과의 대화에 열려있다는 입장을 일관되게 밝혀왔습니다. 그 대화 재개 노력을 포함한 대북 정책 전반에 대해 긴밀한 소통과 공조를 유지 중입니다. 우리 정부는 트럼프 대통령의 메시지가 의미 있는 북미 대화로 이어지기를 기대하며 이를 위해 긴밀한 한미 공조하에 필요한 외교적 노력을 지속해 나갈 예정입니다.
South Korea clearly wants to see this diplomatic opening develop between the two countries, Washington and Pyongyang, and it's really something that President Lee Jae-myung has been pushing for since he took office, and the presidential office says it will continue working closely with Washington to make meaningful U.S.-North Korea dialogue happen. But, it's still unclear what President Trump wants to achieve or how far he is prepared to take this outreach with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And with the U.S. midterm elections coming up in November, many experts are saying they wouldn't rule out a surprise, potentially even another meeting between Trump and Kim between now and the November U.S. elections.
We're hearing now from Dr. Andrew Yeo. He's Senior Fellow at Brookings Institution Center for Asia Policy Studies. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Yeo. We're just hearing from our South Korea senior correspondent. We could read that message from the foreign ministry as an attempt to make the best of a very difficult situation. But even if, on the off chance, North Korea is prepared to re-enter leader-level talks with Washington, would it be prepared to extend the same favor to Seoul?
I don't think so, at least not right away, because North Korea has rejected any kind of engagement with South Korea to date, and they see South Korea as a hostile nation. They only want to deal with the United States. But I do believe it's President Lee's hope that at some point, as was stated earlier, South Korea be the pacemaker to Trump being the peacemaker, and they do hope to somehow be inserted or ride on the coattails of the United States if there is another Trump-Kim meeting.
And presumably North Korea has made that designation. So South Korea last year constitutionally redesignated a hostile state. Given North Korea's shifting weight regionally with other strategic partners?
Yes, so hostile state, a foreign enemy state, and they made it very clear that they don't see South Korea as a partner. There's no longer this narrative of the countries unifying. They've rejected unification. And in the meantime, as you pointed out, North Koreans have become much more diplomatic, open to engaging with countries that are not aligned with the U.S., with Russia, with China, and their capabilities have also been enhanced with support from Russia. And so I think we're seeing a different North Korea today from what we did in 2017, 2018, when President Trump met Kim in Singapore and Hanoi.
Given this changing position, is Washington's outreach to North Korea at this point, from your point of view, prudent?
Well, we've seen President Trump, he doesn't work through conventional processes of diplomacy. Normally you would try to engage North Korea at the working level and move your way up before you set up a leaders meeting. But President Trump likes to work in the reverse, where he wants to meet leader to leader with Kim Jong-un, thinking that it's only Kim that can make any kind of change or difference. The timing is, it's quite odd because right now the United States is embroiled in conflict in the Middle East, and I'm not sure if the United States has the diplomatic bandwidth or the capacity to handle a high-stakes another diplomatic engagement with a country like North Korea. So the timing is certainly odd. Some have argued that maybe it's a way to distract from the lack of progress in the Middle East. But nevertheless, I don't think it's great timing. But I do expect that there will be some kind of Trump-Kim summit before President Trump leaves office in 2028.
The most recent difficulty between the United States and South Korea, Mr. Trump pointing to one of the reasons being South Korea not willing to step up and help the United States on exactly, as you mentioned, that war in the Middle East.
Yes. When President Trump first posted to Truth Social about the photo with him and Kim Jong-un and the reason why joint military exercises with South Korea should be reduced, he mentioned because North Korea has treated Trump, that they haven't been threatening and that the relationship has been working out. So he made it sound like it was because of North Korea why he was scaling back the exercises. But of course, at the latter half of that post, he mentioned it's because South Koreans haven't supported the U.S. in the Middle East. And yesterday, when there were questions at the Oval Office, a reporter tried to ask questions about why exercises were reduced. He focused more on the lack of support in Iran again, rather than North Korea. And that's something that the South Koreans don't want to hear. So they might be open to the idea of reducing exercises to open up or pave the way for engagement, but to criticize the South Koreans for not getting involved in a war that was of the United States' choice. I think that's something that South Koreans publicly aren't going to criticize the United States for that. But I think that's why we're now seeing discussions once again talking about South Koreans needing to strengthen their own defense capabilities or make sure that they have eventual operational control of their military.
South Korea, a concern that they've had even before the latest point of friction would be to keep separate issues, for example, on trade, on tech sensitive regulation, making sure frictions from there do not spread into the crucial security alliance. Before, perhaps just last week, we would have looked at economic ties between the United States and South Korea. Nevertheless, economic, trade, and tech, those are long-standing concerns that South Korea must find a way to keep ties open with the United States, whatever other frictions there might be on other fronts. Final question.
Yes, there's been pressure on the economic front as well, too. As you mentioned before, this Truth Social post, I would have thought we'd be talking about economic relations between the U.S. and South Korea because Washington has continued to pressure Seoul with tariffs. There's an investment package of $200 billion that the South Koreans have pledged that hasn't moved forward, that Seoul and Washington are still negotiating. And there's the threat of tariffs that are ongoing. And this is now being compounded by some of these security issues. And That's where I think Trump doesn't distinguish between economic and security issues. One ties over to the other. If he's unhappy about economics, he'll bring up security issues. For South Korea, they're trying to separate these two issues. They think the economic relationship is one, that should be one basket of issues. The security alliance, that should be another. But that's very difficult to do with President Trump, who seems to just link these two issues together and try to extract as much as he can from allies, whether it's security or on the economic front.
Well, thanks. That Dr. Andrew Yeo trying to break down these latest developments involving the scaling down of these yearly drills between the U.S. and South Korea. Thanks. Dr. Andrew Yeo, Senior Fellow, Center for Asia Policy Studies at the Brookings Institution, speaking to us there from Washington, D.C.